Right, hot mess but blessed. We are back, and it was going to be a grief update, but because it's been a hell of a 24 hours. It's been very emotional. I'm emotionally hungover today. I look it, I feel it, and they feel the exact same as like a standard hangover does, but this one you don't get the good night out, you just get the absolute wallowing and the sadness. So give me a night out any day really, now I'm back drinking. But anyway, to get into the trenches of this podcast, at the last minute, well, podcast, YouTube, what does she do these days, who knows? But the trenches then. PTSD. To start by saying, I am not clinically diagnosed with PTSD, but I probably got it, like, let's have it right. Feel as though you don't really notice that you have it sometimes. And that is kind of what I'm going to talk about though. It's like, do I have it? Do I not? I don't know. Because experiencing two traumas in this life and both of them being very different. So one was like over time, over the years, it definitely messed me up a little bit. It did mess me up a little bit. And it took me a long time to realise and recognise that. And then shout out to me then for noticing and doing the work and healing that trauma, ready for the next one. And the next one then was obviously very different, which is what I've openly spoke about on here, in terms of obviously the death of a loved one, being there at the scene. And if you're someone who has experienced trauma alongside the death of their loved one / their grief, it's very difficult because obviously each scenario of death is very different. You can have obviously sudden accidents, you can watch someone die over time, which means you then of course expect their death. But for me, my scenario personally was being the only person at the scene of my dad's death and watching it happen and the accident happen. And in the first few weeks of the accident and when he was still alive, when he was in hospital, I could not close my eyes at night, and like it brings me like emotional, like even thinking back to it. It was just so hard to even just close my eyes at night because I would see it, I would hear it, I would like smell it. It was just like awful, like I just could not shut off, and I'd like shoot up out of bed and it would just really like pierce through my body. And it was just fucking horrendous every night to have to like see that. And I've also obviously got to live with it for the rest of my life too. But I had to take a beat then, so I'm back a little bit more composed. But yeah, so that piercing sensation and feeling and vision of it happening kind of subsided quite quickly. I wonder why, and I know it sounds crazy because I don't want to be feeling like that at all, but how did it pass so quick? So I know people suffer for a very long duration of time with visions of that, and I don't know if it's because I'm very resilient, like the key word that I use all the time, but unfortunately I've been through so many things that I've built up such resilience. And I also don't know if it's because I have to drive past the location that the accident happened twice a day, if not more. And I think, has that helped with it? But it doesn't go without saying that I don't think about it regularly. Like I can, like right now I can think about it. I can just feel like I'm in that moment all over again. But I think what I'm getting at is that I'm scared the distress of the event and it replaying over and over again in my head, but with that piercing reaction to it, is going to come back strong, and I really obviously don't want it to. But I don't know if that's a thing with PTSD in terms of the replaying of the event. Does it come and go? And because when I think back on those weeks, it's awful. It's so awful. And the nightmares and the night terrors I had after it, because I've always been someone who suffered from night terrors, especially from like the first trauma, like I've always just really suffered. And I think where I've just come such a long way with my whole healing and the way I handle grief, trauma, any distresses that life throws at me, and I feel like I've come such a long way that I'm so scared I'm going to get knocked back on it all. But I need to just appreciate, which is what I do, is I appreciate the now and the moment and how I feel. But then I sometimes go like, am I normal? Like, why do I not feel all this distress that I should be feeling? And like, especially with grief, I feel like people always say about the guilt, especially if we were there at the event of an accident. And of course I've always thought things like, what if? But it doesn't weigh me down whatsoever. And I know a lot of people who would be in a similar situation to mine where they, quote, could have done something, or they thought they could have done something, when realistically no one could ever have done anything, that it really weighs heavy on them. But I don't have that, and I think it's because I'm so accepting and at peace right from kind of the get-go of what happened and the events building up to it and the cause of it. So yeah, grief, PTSD, trauma, I feel like I'm learning a lot, and I feel like it's actually really important to document these little things and put it out to the whole friggin' world, apparently. But as I always say, this is a whole... I'll never stop learning. I will never stop learning when it comes to understanding these emotions, the grief, the trauma, PTSD, potentially, because I'm pretty sure I've got it. I mean, how the fuck would I not? But yeah, that's a little bit of vulnerability. Here we go.